In the heart of Louisiana, behind 30-foot walls and endless coils of razor wire, two lives collided in a way that should never have been possible. A corrections officer, a husband, a father, a man sworn to uphold the law and maintain order, and an inmate, young, convicted, serving time in a place designed to break the spirit. What began as glances across a prison cafeteria would spiral into an obsession that shattered lives, destroyed a family, and ended in a tragedy that shocked an entire state. This is the story of forbidden desire, dangerous secrets, and a fatal decision made in the shadows of the Louisiana prison system. This wasn't just an affair. This was a descent into darkness that no one saw coming. Before we dive into what happened, kindly share this video, and if you're new here, click on the subscribe button. We really appreciate you for doing that. Now let's dive deeper. Marcus Williams, a 34-year-old corrections officer, 10 years on the job, married to his high school sweetheart, father of two young daughters. By all accounts, a man who showed up, did his job, and went home to his family every night. On the other side, Jasmine Reed, 26 years old, serving 8 years for armed robbery and assault. A woman who had already lost everything: her freedom, her reputation, her future. But here's what investigators would spend months trying to understand. How does a respected prison guard, a man with everything to lose, fall for an inmate? Was it manipulation? Was it genuine connection? Or was it something darker? And the question that haunted everyone who knew them: when did love turn into obsession? When did breaking the rules turn into breaking the law? And when did passion turn fatal? Let's go back to where this story really begins. Not in the prison, but in the ordinary life of Marcus Williams. Marcus grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. High school football player, decent student. After graduation, he married his girlfriend Sarah, and like many young men in rural Louisiana looking for stable work, he joined the Department of Corrections. For 10 years, Marcus worked the blocks at Louisiana Women's Correctional Facility. His colleagues described him as reliable, if a bit quiet. Not the type to socialize after shifts. Not the type to cause problems. But at home, things weren't as stable as they appeared. According to friends who would later testify, Marcus's marriage had been struggling for years. Financial stress, growing distance, two people who had grown up together but grown apart as adults. Jasmine came from nothing. Foster care system, dropped out at 16. By 19, she was caught up in a robbery that went wrong. Her boyfriend at the time pointed a gun at a convenience store clerk while Jasmine was waiting in the car. She took a plea deal, 8 years, and in 2022, she arrived at Louisiana Women's Correctional Facility, scared, angry, and completely alone. Inmates who knew Jasmine described her as a survivor, smart, observant. She learned quickly how things worked inside, who to trust, who to avoid, and most importantly, how to read people. Marcus Williams was assigned to C Block, Jasmine's housing unit. Their first interaction was unremarkable. He processed her meal cart. She said thank you. He nodded and moved on. But somewhere in those routine exchanges, in the monotony of prison life where every day looks exactly the same, something shifted. According to later testimonies, it started small, a longer glance, a brief conversation during a head count, Jasmine asking Marcus about his day. Marcus, starved for connection at home, finding himself, responding. Within 3 months, they were passing notes. Within 6 months, their relationship had crossed every professional and legal boundary. But what they didn't know was that their secret was already unraveling. And when it did, the consequences would be catastrophic. By early 2024, Marcus Williams and Jasmine Reed were no longer just exchanging glances and notes. Their relationship had evolved into something physical, dangerous, and completely illegal. According to the investigation, they met in maintenance classes, empty classrooms during off hours, and once in the prison chapel after evening services. Marcus began smuggling items to Jasmine. Nothing major at first. Makeup, better soap, magazines, but then came the cell phone, a direct violation that could cost him his job and land him himself in prison. Text messages recovered later showed their relationship intensifying. "I can't stop thinking about you. You're the only one who understands me. This feels like the only real thing in my life." But in prison, secrets don't stay secret for long. Other inmates noticed. Marcus got sloppy, spending too much time near Jasmine's cell, showing her favoritism, going defensive when questioned by other guards. Then in March 2024, everything changed. Marcus's wife, Sarah, found text messages on an old phone he'd forgotten to delete. Messages to a number she didn't recognize. Messages that made it clear his husband was involved with someone else. The confrontation at home was explosive. Sarah demanded answers. Marcus backed into a corner, admitted to the affair but claimed it was over. He promised to end it. He begged for another chance. The next day, Marcus went to work determined to break things off with Jasmine. But what he didn't anticipate was her reaction. According to Marcus's later testimony, Jasmine didn't take the news well. She became emotional, then angry. She threatened to expose him, to tell the warden everything. She said if she was going down, he was going down with her. But Jasmine had another plan, one that Marcus never saw coming. March 15th, 2024, a Friday evening, end of shift. Marcus agreed to meet Jasmine one last time in a storage area away from the cameras to talk things through. What happened next is still disputed, but what we know for certain is this. At 7:43 p.m., an alarm was triggered in C Block. Guards rushed to the storage area, and what they found would change everything. Marcus Williams was on the floor, bleeding from multiple stab wounds, and standing over him, covered in blood, was Jasmine Reed. If you're following this case closely, drop a comment with the word Louisiana. I want to see who's really paying attention to every detail of his story. Marcus Williams was rushed to Baton Rouge Clinical Hospital with 4 stab wounds. 2 to the chest, 1 to the abdomen, and 1 defensive wound on his left arm. Doctors worked for 3 hours to save his life. At 11:17 p.m., Marcus Williams was pronounced dead. Back at the facility, Louisiana State Police had already locked down the entire institution. Every inmate was confined to their cells. Every staff member was being questioned. Jasmine Reed was immediately taken into custody. Not that she had anywhere to run. She was already serving time. But now she was facing a murder charge. Lead investigator Detective Raymond Torres had seen a lot in his 20 years with Louisiana State Police. But this case was different. This wasn't a prison fight gone wrong or gang violence. This was something more personal, more complicated. The weapon was found at the scene, a makeshift shank, about 6 inches long, fashioned from a piece of metal taken from a prison workshop. Jasmine's fingerprints were all over it. Then came the cell phone, the one that Marcus had smuggled to Jasmine months earlier. When investigators accessed it, they found hundreds of text messages, dozens of photos, and the trail of communication that made the nature of their relationship undeniable. But here's where the investigation got complicated. Because as detectives dug deeper, they discovered this wasn't just a simple case of an affair gone wrong. Other guards came forward, some reluctantly, admitting that they had suspected something was going on between Marcus and Jasmine. Some had even confronted Marcus about it. He'd denied everything. The warden launched an internal investigation. How had this relationship gone undetected for so long? Were there failures in supervision? Were other guards involved or complicit? Within 48 hours, the story had exploded in the media. Headlines screamed, "Deadly prison affair. Guard killed by inmate lover. Louisiana corrections in crisis."
For Marcus's widow, Sarah, the nightmare was just beginning. Not only had she lost her husband, but now his infidelity was public knowledge, dissected in newspapers and on television across the state. Their 2 daughters, ages 7 and 9, had to be pulled from school after classmates and even teachers began asking questions. The family that Marcus had sworn to protect was now in ruins. As for Jasmine Reed, she was transferred to maximum security isolation, charged with first-degree murder. If convicted, she would face life in prison without parole, or potentially the death penalty. But Jasmine had something to say, and when she finally spoke, her version of events would shock everyone. June 2024. The trial of Jasmine Reed began in East Baton Rouge Parish Court. Prosecutors were seeking the death penalty. The prosecution's case seemed straightforward. Jasmine Reed had murdered Marcus Williams in cold blood after he tried to end their illicit affair. The evidence was overwhelming. Her fingerprints on the weapon, his blood on her clothes, eyewitnesses who placed her at the scene. But Jasmine's defense attorney, public defender Monica Chen, had a different story to tell, one that would complicate everything. When Jasmine took the stand, she didn't deny the affair. She didn't deny that she had stabbed Marcus Williams. But she claimed it wasn't murder. It was self-defense. According to Jasmine, the relationship had started out as consensual, at least as consensual as it could be between a prisoner and a guard. But over time, she claimed, Marcus became controlling, possessive, and eventually threatening. Jasmine testified that when Marcus tried to end the relationship, she agreed. She said she understood it had to stop. But then Marcus allegedly told her that if she ever spoke about their affair, he would make her life inside prison a living hell. He had power over her, where she slept, what she ate, whether she got visits, whether she got parole. The defense argued that this was never an equal relationship. This was a corrections officer exploiting a vulnerable inmate. The power imbalance was absolute. But prosecutors pushed back hard. They introduced those text messages, the ones where Jasmine wrote, "I love you," where she talked about their future together, where she seemed fully engaged in the relationship. Then came the most damning piece of evidence, a letter Jasmine had written to another inmate 3 weeks before Marcus's death. In it, she wrote, "If Marcus thinks he can just walk away from me like I'm nothing, he's got another thing coming. I'll make him pay." The prosecution rested their case. It seemed open and shut. Then Sarah Williams took the stand. Sarah's testimony was heartbreaking. She described the moment she found the text messages, the confrontation with her husband, his promises that it was over. But then Sarah said something that surprised everyone. She admitted that her marriage had been troubled for years, that Marcus had been distant, depressed, sometimes angry. She said she suspected he was having an affair, but never imagined it was with an inmate. "He was lost," Sarah testified. "I think he was looking for something. Validation, escape, I don't know. But he made a choice, a terrible choice, and it cost him everything." As Sarah spoke, Jasmine was seen wiping tears from her eyes. Whether it was genuine remorse or calculated emotion, no one could say for sure. The defendants made one final push. They argued that on the night of March 15th, Marcus hadn't come to talk. He had come to threaten Jasmine one last time, that he had grabbed her, that she had picked up the weapon in fear for her safety. But the prosecution countered. 4 stab wounds. 4. If Jasmine was defending herself, why didn't she stop after 1? Why didn't she call for help? Why was the weapon hidden in herself for weeks before the incident? The jury deliberated for 3 days. On July 19th, 2024, the jury returned with their verdict. Guilty, first-degree murder. But they rejected the death penalty. Instead, they recommended life in prison without the possibility of parole. At sentencing, the judge had harsh words for everyone involved, for Jasmine, for the prison system that failed to prevent this tragedy, and even for Marcus, whose choices had set everything in motion.
The judge stated, "This case represents a catastrophic failure at every level. An officer who betrayed his oath, an inmate who took a life, and an institution that allowed a dangerous relationship to flourish unchecked. The only victims here are Marcus Williams' family and the public trust that has been shattered." Jasmine Reed was sentenced to life without parole. She is currently incarcerated at a maximum security facility in northern Louisiana, where she will likely spend the rest of her life. For Sarah Williams and her daughters, life moved forward, but the scars remained. Sarah filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Louisiana Department of Corrections, alleging negligence in supervision and training. The case settled out of court for an undisclosed amount, but no amount of money could bring back their husband and father. In the aftermath, Louisiana launched sweeping reforms: new surveillance systems, stricter protocols for guard-inmate interactions, mandatory psychological evaluations for corrections staff. But the questions lingered. How many other inappropriate relationships exist behind prison walls? How many go undetected? How many end not in death, but in coercion, manipulation, and abuse? This case forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about power, about isolation, about human connection in the most inhumane places. Was Marcus Williams a predator who exploited a vulnerable woman, or was he a lonely man who made a catastrophic error in judgment? Was Jasmine Reed a cold-blooded murderer, or was she a desperate woman who felt she had no other choice? The jury answered those questions, but the moral complexity remains. What we know for certain is this: behind those walls, where everything is controlled and monitored, where freedom is a memory and tomorrow looks exactly like today, human desire still finds a way in, and sometimes that desire turns deadly. Marcus Williams was 34 years old when he died. Jasmine Reed was 26, and the lives they destroyed, their own, Sarah's, and the children's, can never be repaired. This is the cost of forbidden love in a place designed to forbid everything. So now I want to hear from you. After hearing all the evidence, all the testimony, all the perspectives, what do you think? Was Jasmine Reed a murderer who killed in a fit of rage, or was she a victim who fought back against someone who had power over every aspect of her existence? And what about Marcus? Should we view him as a victim of violence, or should we see him as someone whose own choices led directly to his death? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and I'm genuinely curious where you stand on this case. If you're fascinated by true crime stories where the truth is more complicated than it first appears, make sure you subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss any of our true crimes cases there. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Until next time, remember, justice isn't always as simple as guilty or innocent. Sometimes everyone loses.